Welcome back to the farm. You can see it is a very hot, windy day, which is not good for the plants. And this is just wreaking havoc on my summer crops. My peppers, my blueberries, my blackberries, even my grapes. This because of the fact it's been extremely hot and extremely dry, and when you have windy conditions on top of that, that airs out the soil even quicker. However, if you manage to be smart about things, you can keep your plants alive. You see this one right here. The tomatoes pretty much done, but I got a volunteer, I believe it's a pumpkin, growing. It's hard for me to tell because I don't see any female flowers on this, but that's a good way to lead into a fall. So if you're struggling for gardening right now, I'd say look at the plants that are still surviving versus what you want to keep and start planning for a fall. If it's real bad and you want to keep arrow plants, I would suggest adding a 1 to 2 inch thick layer of mulch, preferably glass, compost, or leaves, like you can see down here. Those that I have been keeping alive are doing quite well. You see my flying dragon fruit tree here is doing nice. Or if you happen to be able to plan out where you plant with the soil, that helps tremendously. You see I still have flowers, which leads me into the beekeeping side. For the beekeeping, this is the time you start doing your honey harvest if you have it available. You don't see much swarming because I've added the new box, but you also have to worry about your Varroa destructor mite count. A lot of beekeepers I know will actually do a count. I know this is many that will not do a count and just do treatment. The mite treatments depends on what temperature you're in and what's effective. I'm going to hit them up with an OA treatment tomorrow, and I'll show you how to do that. Also, rendering beeswax. You make a little solar wax melter. So I just have this out there to see if this will melt down that farther. But this has already been rendered. You also have to make sure you're not in a dearth. A dearth is this beekeeper's jargon, meaning lack of pollen and nectar flow. A lot of them will mean nectar. I consider it both. However, I've gotten around that because, again, I'm not a typical beekeeper. I'm not a typical gardener. See, I have basil here. See, I have sunflowers. There's some huckleberry flowers on there. You saw the the pepper flower. This is flowering, whatever that is. I don't know. There they are. There's huckleberry flowers. So I'm able to get around that so I don't have to do internal feeding. If you're in a dearth, you do have to do internal feeding. I would recommend internal, unless you have a wide enough space where you can go from 50 yards out. And that would be depending on what you need, if you need more brood being drawn out, a 1-to-1 sugar to water ratio. During the fall, you do a 2-to-1 feeding. Now, if you've done everything properly, you don't need to worry about the bees. For your compost, which you see right here, due to the heat, worm composting, unless they're inside AC, they will have temperature control issues because they are cold-blooded. So I add my ice packs in here. That's a way for me to bring in cold water. You can also freeze your leftover food. Grind it up, dump it in there, into the bin. I don't necessarily do that, but you do want to make sure you're not adding too much greens. Let's continue rotating your trays. Your compost, regular compost, don't need to worry about that. The main thing is to add water, but I always say that's optional. Your fruit shrubs, if you can't provide them shade, this happens a lot. See how this is just drying up? That is this a recession thing? Not a recession, excuse me, wrong word. That's just part of nature. The plant will withdraw to survive. So I cannot stress adding water enough. That's going to be the main thing. Any fruit that, this is what happens to fruit they eat during the summer months, that if they don't get enough water, it will retract and dry up. Greenhouses. You can see I had to rearrange my greenhouses because of that bad boy. This was on the roof of this thing, so that was a fun experience. If you have, and these are just typical still pop-up greenhouses I call them, the plastic film, the plastic comes with it, the film, that will rip and tear. You can repair it, but I find that's not worth the money repairing. I'd recommend getting a greenhouse film and getting some clips that you can clip on here, and you just raise up the film and raise it back down when you need to. That's what I'm going to be doing here in a couple months. I already got the plastic in the shed. Also, any down tree limbs you see, continue adding that to the compost. As you can see, this due to that down tree limb there, I got a nice little bush pile that I have to deal with. Firewood, more mulch I can break down that I can add back in the compost or straight to my fruit plants, which is actually a very good idea. Clean it. I don't recommend cleaning out a compost unless you want to. I must do that in the fall. Anything else needs to be brought up? And I believe that covers all the bases. So to reiterate, gardening, number one thing, water, water, water. If you do have beekeeping, or if you are a beekeeper, make sure you're not in the dearth, which means make sure you have plants that are in the nectar flow. And again, water ties into that. Start planning for a garden if you want to do a fall. If not, then let the garden rest and start replenishing the soil, fertilizing, adding compost. Do or harvesting if you have it available. That includes honey if you need to take off your super. Render a beeswax, as I have said. Mite treatment. Those are the most important things to do this time of year. Thanks for joining. This is Charles Urban Farmer. I will catch you in the next video.